Our featured poets this evening are Nathalie Anderson, Amanda Shaw, and Emily Tuszynska. We encourage you to buy our featured readers' books that are on the table in the back of the room. And also for those of you joining us on Zoom, we will put the links in the chat so you can access the links there for our featured readers' books. We also encourage you to donate to Café Muse to support our literary program. Now, before we begin, a few reminders. The audience members on Zoom have been muted. This is to prevent any feedback issues and ensure uninterrupted programming. Please bear with us if we do encounter a glitch. And if you're watching online, you may want to chat or comment in the chat. You can do some finger snaps for our poets to show your appreciation. And also remember, you can access links to their books there. Our program this evening is scheduled for 1 hour. Tonight's trio of poets represents a rich array of local talent. Each of our poets contributes deeply to the greater community through their unique craft that touches, moves, and inspires. Karen Alanier, our Café Muse founder, is going to introduce Nathalie, our first reader of the evening. And I'll introduce Amanda and Emily. Karen?
Thank you, Claire. And good evening, and thank you for supporting Café Muse with your attendance here in the room and online. Nathalie Anderson, poet, librettist, seasoned creative writing professor, an advocate for poets and poetry in the Philadelphia area. So glad to have her here with us this evening. Among her many achievements, she won the WordWorks Washington Prize for her first book, Following Fred Astaire. She's author of 6 poetry collections, including her latest, Rough, which is this book. And this book is also from the WordWorks. Her work has been published in such prestigious publications as Atlantic Review and The New Yorker. She collaborated with Lisa Sewell on the poetic rendering of Birds of North America, which is a fabulous and interesting collaboration. She's a practice collaborator, having written 5 opera libretti, which have been set to music and produced. She also was my thought partner on From the Belly, Poets Respond to Gertrude Stein's Tender Buttons, Volume 2, Food. Her poetry is highly tuned to the senses. In Catch, I quote, "Stranded on the corner where they're airing out the air," unquote. One can almost feel that breeze that emanates from a dream. Quote, "Some strain of it, strand of it, stroking her lips, some little cat's paw, some soft flowing," unquote. She is master of delivering the English language to the page and to the ear. Please give a warm welcome to Nathalie Anderson and consider buying one of her books.
Thanks so much, Karen. I feel like I'm not going to live up to this very well, but I really appreciate the invitation to come back to Café Muse. I want to thank you all for being here this evening, whether online, and I see a couple of my friends are on that list, or here in the room. And it's a particular pleasure to be reading with Amanda and Emily tonight. I look forward to learning more. So my new book, Rough, which I sort of need to wrestle everything into submission here. Again, it looks like this. My new book, Rough, coalesces around a rough time in my life when a number of especially close friends died within about a year. As I put the book together, that personal roughness led to an acknowledgement of the world as rough. Excuse me, I also realize I need to set this. And a consideration of how one might somehow work to ameliorate that roughness. So I'm going to begin tonight with a few of these poems of loss and sorrow, and then I hope a couple that are more satiric, and then maybe I'll conclude with the book's first poem. We'll see if I still have time. So this first poem is called Rant. Practicing all morning, every morning, for a week before the wake. Practicing hard, repeating myself, speaking over and over my small spliff of consolation, in shower, by mirror, in larder, by heart, and every time making myself cry with poetry. Hating myself for how my voice cracks, grief sloshing out in gasps and gusts. Hate how I shake, deep tremor, aftershocks. Hate how flash it comes, and out of nothing, riptide, dry lightning. Hate how words do this so fast, I look soft, cheap, mawkish, easy. Whose poem? Not that it matters much, but this time it's Malay. I hate her too, for how from words that could mean anyone at all, the intelligent, the witty, the brave, I see my friend, his beard grown hermit wild, his eyes still glacier blue, lifting his hand to his breastbone, saying, what I feel now is the world's pain, the essential pain, both essence of pain and essential to me. I don't want to feel it, yet feel I need to feel it. Where's he gone, that man who danced like the wind and thought like he danced? And where's that woman whose eyebrows always almost met, who crinkled when she smiled? Or that woman who ruled the roost like a banty cock? Or that man with the nervous foot, the over-anxious heart? Is this essential pain? I want my friends. I want Alan, Linda, Joan, George, Janet. Oh, double dealer, you with the shell game, the bait and switch, the predatory loan, who one by one takes back each gracious gift you give. I hope you're reading this out loud, in public, before witnesses. Read it again and again, why don't you? Read it and weep. So, thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is called Visitations. I have in my life had a dead friend speak to me in a dream. And once that happens, you wonder how you might invite it to happen again. And that's where this poem starts, Visitations. The dead come back so seldom, we forget how to please them. That one time, for me, for instance, my lost man did all the heavy lifting. I mean, there he was, waiting patient for me to catch up to him. Then there he wasn't. Now I'm racked. What fell thing did I do by chance to open that door, invite him in? Clipped what nail or hair or shirt, slipped what under plate or pillow, feather, say, or fern? And was there blood let, paper cut, bit lip? I do it again, but you can't waste their time. What you saw, what you said, what you wore, that's nothing to them now. Used to be, I'd bring the show and tell, the books, the snaps, the toys, the news, the drafts I thought she'd like. But what's to bring now she knows all? Used to be, I'd leave her ticket with the usher. She'd run so far behind. That last time, she missed the film. Met me after at the parking garage, leaning, I'd like to say insouciant, against a bollard. Face blue, though, and her lips puce. Couldn't lift her own legs into the cab, but still sent back the mushy shrimp, still waxed crucially sardonic, still turned every page of that Jack Yates, still shook up all I brought her. That one time, minding my father. He was gone already, would stay gone like that another 7 years. I laid this out, how from the air over the leafless woods from Pennsylvania south to Carolina, the noon sun caught the streams, who knew how many, a tangled skein of silver. I don't think he even turned his head. Maybe I was air to him or trickling water. No wonder he never comes to visit. But who knows what they'll come for? Likely not my sorry for myself, my every place in this city you might name, we were there together, my snuffling in concerts, my wail in the driveway. No way she'd stand still 5 minutes for that shit. Or this, my late, late friend. Thank you. The vanishing. What can I say? You fell from my hand. I was looking aside. I was looking askew. I left you behind. It happened that fast. I flung out my hand. You flew who knows where. Like my bank card at Heathrow, like my sweet turquoise ring. You fell from my hand. I felt nothing at all. I retraced my steps, kept my eyes to the ground. Half the bankers in Philly knew my loss before me. My sweet turquoise ring I bought for myself when I was 13. You were with me that long. I flung out my hand. My fingers had thinned. I shook back my hair. You slipped down the drain. Rain falling on water, mist rising to air, ice melting to nothing. Like that, you were spent. How could I not know when you ran out of heart? I turn up my palms. What line have I cropped? In Brooklyn, you fell. At Heathrow, at home. I was walking along. I was looking away. I was counting my cash. I was counting my rings. Like God counting his sparrows, I was counting on air. So now I'll change radically to something else. This next poem comes from a sequence called Strongman, a sequence exploring how we use that term to designate culture heroes like, say, the strongman Hercules and warlords like strongman Idi Amin. So in this poem called Thick, Bluto, the villain of the Popeye cartoons, is writing a love letter to Olive Oil, the woman both Bluto and Popeye adore. Thick. A thick man, writes Bluto, eyeing self-satisfied, his girth in the pier glass. A thick man's steady in the storm, anchors fast as an anchor, sails full-bellied as a sail. That's it, he thinks, irrefutable, the logic of tautology. She'll go for that. A thick man, he writes on, flexing his pectorals so the metals wink and clink across his chest, so his top buttons plip-plop. A thick man's like a brick in a foundation. No, too shaky for a town of stone and steel. Like a brick in a brick wall. No, too tame, too stolid, sedentary. Like a brick chucked through a window. Just so, that dynamism. A thick man, he continues, spiking out absent-minded his barbarosity of beard. A thick man's cuddly as a plumped and yallered Easter chick, reliable as an old-time vaudeville shtick, slippery and insidious as an oil slick, engrossing as a splatter flick, efficient as a swift kick. That's telling her. Now for romance. A thick man slow as a cow's slow tongue, yay, at the salt lick. Who could resist? Yikes. He strokes his chin, considers, and thinking of his enemy, how he twists all to his unfair advantage, beats me up for doing nothing. Pluto darkens, glowers, thunders, storms. A thick man is not a sick man. A thick man is no hick. And whaling out his arms, so his brawn behemoths, he lays the pen aside, bears broad his broad-toothed smile. That's it. That's done it. Just the thing to satisfy a certain goyle. Just the thing to justify impounding a certain oil. Just the thing to put paid permanent like to any pipe-smacking, stubble-faced, tattied Yankee runt whose only strength is greenbacks eaten shredded from a can. So thank you so much. I think, well, we'll see. This next poem is called Mystery. I am a big fan of mystery novels, and the situation that I describe in this poem has actually happened to me. Mystery. I got to page 185, 86 of the latest nail-biter crime novel when she made me gasp, my spunky, smart-mouthed, scapegrace heroine sleuth. Shadowing her mark, she'd stalked down those mean streets, straight through the sleazy bar lounge of the Fleabag Hotel, out its dim back hall, past the ladies to the men's room. Yes, right in and up to the urinal where the bad guy was pissant, pissing. That's ballsy, I thought, seriously impressed, while she sneered something strong-armed and snarky, something screwball and scampish, scathing, scofflaw, then really proved she had him. Unzipped, pissed on his shoes, re-zipped. How'd she manage that? I actually asked before I saw what any other reader knew from page 1. Leslie, call me Les, was male. I had to rethink it all. How she'd stepped up for her pal in that bar fight, how she'd faced down shysters and cops, how at the pickup game she'd razzed the young toughs, how she'd tossed back a few, how she'd sat the edge of the secretary's desk, leaning in, almost leering, how her forehead rested a beat against her own front door, how she ducked her mom's calls. Everything audacious, drained of its color, male, merely conventional, a dick like any other. This happens to me all the time. Dr. J, architect Nance, chef Z, I anticipate women. Surgeon, game warden, airline pilot, sanitation worker, boxer, professor, you name the job, I see a woman there. So for you guys, does it happen the other way? When Jay pulls the pizza from the oven, when Nance sets the last dish in the rack, when Z sighs deep, shifting her weight in the empty bed, when Chris, though coughing, turns the page, when Danny beckons, soothes, when Tam tears up, smiles anyhow, when Johnny hunches her shoulders, when Audie sings, when Billy whistles, when Les puts her hard hand to her mouth, thinking twice. Do you see that man? So let me just look here. Okay, I think I've probably read my fair share. So I enjoyed this very much. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Too excited.
Just stand back here. But thank you. Those were that was a wonderful variety of poems, and serious and poignant, and gave us some laughs too. So thank you. And now I have the pleasure of introducing poet and friend Amanda Shaw to you tonight. Amanda and I met back in 2014 or 15 when we were both um, uh, enrolling in the Warren Wilson program for writers. So Amanda is a teacher and an editor at the World Bank and other international organizations. Her debut collection, It Will Have Been So Beautiful, was published by Lily Poetry Review Books. Came out in March 2024. Amanda earned an MAT from the New School and an MFA from Warren Wilson. She has taught language and literature for over 25 years. Amanda's poems and essays have appeared in Leon Literary Review, Spoon River Poetry Review, the Mid-Atlantic Review, and other journals. Amanda is also the book reviews editor at Lily Poetry Reviews. Throughout the pages of her collection, It Will Have Been So Beautiful, it is clearly evidence that Amanda champions language, the master of diction, and the written word while feeling the world deeply and boldly. Her images and references to history, the natural world, culture and cultures, and personal experiences move about in associative ways that will surprise, delight, sometimes haunt and unsettle the reader in ways that important art often does. Please welcome Amanda.
See, how's the sound? Not quite as petite. Yeah, exactly. Okay, how's that? Great. Thank you, Claire. And thanks to Café Muse. Really nice to be here. I think I'm probably going to give a selection of poems that are all of those things that she talked about. We'll start with love. This is from my husband, who luckily for him is in the room. He grew up in Switzerland and currently works he's a federal employee. So I felt like I'm very proud of him. Given everything that's going on for him, I think it's really impressive that what disgusted him most and what has upset him the most about what's going on was the press conference because of how he feels about this country and why he came here. So I just wanted to give him some love. This is called Vigil. There is a window that appears in his hot sleep, its shutters thrown wide, but the frame is painted shut. Beyond hills where gentians bloom in manure, where angelica and yarrow twist among the rock-strewn herbs, where sometimes a small unicorn bends its neck, munching flowers or tart apples in the new grass, though he can't taste their cider. Tonight, the heavy blankets hem his long, twisting body, one long bare leg thrust out to feel the winter air. Sometimes I fear he's breathing wrong, fitful silences, propulsive exhalations, searching for the word he needs and can't get out. From him, I learned the words for the thistle whose stem can be cooked to tenderness, and the purple trifoliate clover that bites like sweet onion. With him, I've seen the Mont Blanc and the Clair de Lune, seen rills that cool the dry, hot, blanched gold fields. Most nights, I hope to dream in the tongue of his childhood. Fenêtre, he'll murmur. Window, I'll hear, and it will open at my touch. All right, shifting gears here. We're going to get an angry poem. You have probably heard or seen Roger and Me, but just briefly, it's Michael Moore's first movie. He chases around or tries to find the CEO of General Motors, who has just closed a plant in Flint, Michigan, to the tune of tens of thousands of jobs disappearing. But there's also a very upsetting scene in it beyond that. So it's called Allegory of the Fish. Some years ago now, someone found Selexabenazole-abilify, norfluoxetine, venlafaxine, diphenhydramine paroxetine in Great Lakes fish brains, fish livers, fish muscles, even gonads. And reading about this, I remembered Roger and Me was set in Flint, not far from Lake Huron, the very same city where decades later it all came out. Some nameless guys had led its residents to tainted water, then claimed they weren't the ones who made the people drink. Besides, we all die anyway, I believe is how it went down at the hearing, which only just happened a month or so ago. Though the spokesman had a point, we're all drinking something that'll kill us. Microplastics, arsenophosphate, chlorinsectipesticide. Which reminds me, I think it's weird the French call weeds mauvaise herbe, bad grasses. It seems les botanistes neglected to ask the honeybees, and pretty soon it'll be too late. At first, I didn't understand how antidepressants would make the poor Great Lake shrimp suicidal. Turns out Prozac led them towards the light, where it just so happens their predators hang out. But back down in the weeds, I'm thinking any bee would tell the French, don't blame the damn plants. Everything wants to find a way to come back, though the factory or the jobs Roger took from Flint never did. Fun fact, the government sent truckloads of water Nestle's draining the Great Lakes to sell, but it was nowhere near enough to help them drink all those years away. Now, the babies weaned on trihalomethanes are schoolgirls and boys struggling to make it through third grade. Though even if they could, they'd find the teachers themselves are barely hanging on. Maybe it's time for a sequel to Roger and Me, which was a pretty good movie, Michael Moore, but you didn't need to show me the rabbit, alive, flayed, jerking. Okay, so taking a bit of a risk here. You have a book out, you read for a year the same poems over and over, and I was thinking, I'm a little tired of that. And I also felt like, again, to bring it back to our political moment, it was important for me to share this particular piece that I'm working on. It's either very brave or very stupid of me. It's said that 1 in 4 women in the US will have an abortion. I didn't realize until I did a word cloud of my book that the words boy and girl were among the most frequent, or that some of the poems about loss were obliquely about my own experience with an abortion. It happened 20 years ago, and I am only now taking it head on. Just a note, I was born with hip dysplasia and I had a lot of x-rays as a child, so I'm working that into this piece as well. I can't really decide yet if it's a poem or prose or both, but right now the working title is 0.71 ounces, which is roughly what a fetus weighs. It's at 7 weeks. 0.71 ounces. There was no whispering angel, no calligraphy ribboning from the lute, transcribing the heavenly song. Something blue came from me, I think, like blood before oxygen. It could have been a glitch somewhere between wand and screen, a vague pulsing, a fascia-like web, recalling atom-braided words, phylogeny, ontogeny, and the teacher who said that we bear the primordial slime until it's fire lizard, tortoise, swine. I once was a girl who had to know that the red knot below the tummy ache is where the lead pad goes in the beeping room, the dull green open robe, the keeping still, still. Breath held before the technician clicks and releases the child from the light into the cramped stall where the woman removes heels permeated with New York dirt and puts on skid-proof socks. No one has told her she might bleed for weeks. My sister sent me pictures every time the fruit got bigger. Berry, grape, apple, melon, girl, in a small tub surprised by water over her dark, gummy hair, her soft O of a mouth and bruised eyelid, unsure how to keep them shut. On Lexington, women with angry mouths, their admonitions swirled away from me in the cab ride home. What was the sizzle in an egg appears on film behind a swabbing silence, a metronome of stuttering gauze. I fleshed the fish out, then fished it out of my flesh. I didn't know I'd miss the slimming sickness of enunciation, the saltines easily broken down in gastric acid. Once, my body was a sound where the ocean crept to shore. Today, I am made of caverns, and the emptiness roars. Definitely going to switch direction now. We get to play. Okay, so this poem is called Dance, Dance, Evolution. The so-called waggle dance confused me at first. Why, above her honeycomb, a bee will move for up to 100 circuits, wagging her pointy rump in a perfect figure 8. I thought the dancer was pointing to the honey already in the comb, didn't understand why the other bees would care. My husband, amused, explained how scouts make their bodies into arrows to guide the hive to pastures new. It's true, scientists have mapped the dance on axes, calculated trajectories for the vector of her busy jig. Though the first of many to observe believed the bees were celebrating certain pleasures and jollity. Before too long, someone showed up and proved it a fact of survival. I even came across a young linguist praising us at the bees' expense. Bees can't speak of honey on the moon, only the honey they've already seen. In a tone of triumph, I found absurd. If bees are born with the skills they'll need to help the hive, why talk of seeking out new worlds? Consider the worker, shaped so well in perfect thirds, head, plump thorax, and tapering bum, the pollen baskets on her furry legs like eco-friendly shopping bags. To make Greg laugh, I tried the dance, and there was much more waggle than I'd have preferred. Though bees preserve their figures efficiently, no single lady dances without a meadow white with lilies, a sea of alyssum just over that next hill. Humans, we can't help ourselves. We'll eat whatever honey we can get, then run in circles at the gym. I have to anyway. Last time I danced instinctively, the boys all laughed, and I sat back down. So it's a comfort to hear that there's a dance out there to save a race from doom. But wouldn't you know, even the waggle is up for debate. Some swear it's olfactory factors, not mystic rites, that will rescue the species from the varroa mite. The scientists in this more practical camp warn a single bee might go on more than 50 runs, returning so often to a favorite patch, her sisters will learn to ignore even her most graceful figure 8. And in case you're the type to hold out hope, these men are happy to go on explaining why the dance itself, ergo, is doomed. Following social cues takes more energy than foraging on your own. Moreover, transmitted information quickly becomes obsolete. Still, given a choice, I'd hold with the guy who guessed they danced for joy. Let them return to flowers they've seen. No bee is going to the moon. Then the poems get happier towards the end of the book. So this is the penultimate poem. Here we go. It's called Ashes, Ashes. Julia says, I'm so sick of sand in my house, breaking another vacuum cleaner. No more shells, Ruthie knows. No copper whelk or bearded cowrie, no mulberry sponge or creamy auger. Though, hold these, Manna. She's busy anyway. My pockets are wet. She's gathering arrowhead sand dollars, washed up with the evening's low waves, and amassed among the gray-black rock at the far end of the darkening beach. Not the delicate discs I see hearing sand dollar, or used to see. They're huge, palm-sized, the once living limbs, now elongated almonds, reshaping the sea I knew. Here's a perfect half specimen. I'll have to hold it in my hands or crush it. But Ernie's grimacing, wet lashes turned from our fun. He's dropped a shell-encrusted stone on his foot. Wants to go home to toast the sunset, a shot glass all his own, juice refilling with every ching-ching. Soon edges will thin out, soften. Mama and I will have gin. But wait, Ruthie's found another, almost symmetrical, outlines of all 5 legs, unbroken, little amygdalae. Ruthie, I've no room left, and we can't take them with us, remember? But Mama is here by the ebbing waves. Ernie's laughing, and we dance a family ring around the inscrutable Rosie. You know it's about the plague. Yes, I know. So what? We're spinning. The earth is too. And now, with glee, we all fall down. Small, wet butts in cool, wet sand. In my heavy pockets, skeletons like stars.
The poems you chose to read. You took us on an emotional roller coaster. Thank you. Anyway, it took a lot of courage to share with us the new poem that you're working on. So thank you. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Emily Tuszynska. Emily lives with her family in Fairfax, Virginia, and teaches at George Mason University. Her first book, Surfacing, Grayson Books, came out in 2024 and was the winner of the Grayson Books Poetry Award. Her poems can be found in the Georgia Review, Mom Egg Review, Scientific Review, Scientific American, the Southern Review, and many other publications. It's no surprise to me that Emily won the Grayson Book Award. Her collection, Surfacing, immerses the reader in the personal experiences of home, expecting a child, parenting, and being out in the green world. Emily's poems are deeply observant and very self-aware. They're like, I thought of deep, clear waters that they're very clear, but if you look into them and deep enough, there's so much mystery in each one of them. And it's my pleasure to welcome you, Lily.
Thank you, Claire. Can you hear me at the back? Is that okay? I'm gonna start with reading up an ekphrastic poem about an art exhibit that I saw at the National Gallery of Art. Maybe some of you remember it. It was 2007. I went to it with my two oldest children were preschool age. One of them was in the stroller. He came to the show with me. Only maybe a dozen pieces, but it was by an Italian sculptor named Desiderio da Settignano, 15th century sculpture, I believe. And his artwork was mostly children. I remember a marble bust of a laughing boy. There was just like something very sensuous and beautiful about the way the pieces were carved. She had these bas reliefs that were so delicate and faint on the surface of the marble. It seemed like this stone was almost evanescent. And then when I started writing poems about my own children, I remembered that artwork and felt like Desiderio understood something that I was trying to get at. You know, that strange amazement of seeing a new creature come into being. I felt that in those sculptures. So this poem responds to one of his pieces in particular. It's a marble medallion. It's called a tondo, just a round piece of marble, a bas relief of Christ and John the Baptist, carved out of this ethereal marble. Incarnate. Under Desiderio da Settignano's tools, the two boys must have pressed up and out as through a veil, a call, the marble block warmed by his polishing, as if stone were transmuting to skin, mouths panting softly, opening, soft eyes opening in luminous stone. Open, open, that prayer of childbirth, a desperate, willed acceptance, choosing what can't not be chosen, the body's dumb surrender. Be broken, torn, be open, flayed, be naked, shaking. Desiderio, what tore you open? Though your story's lost, these, your stone children, bear the sweet mark of sorrow, and of the end you knew. John's bearded head on a platter, the gush of blood and water from Christ's side, and before the mystery of mysteries, the temple curtain ripped in two. O flesh, wail, moan, be touched, be torn, until we know the body to be nothing more than the wound through which the spirit is pierced. Stay, stay, your chisel rang and fell silent. Almost 6 centuries later, these two boys, cut and hammered into existence, cannot stop themselves. They must grasp each other. They are, yes, made flesh. Their hands sink into John's fleece tunic, and they quiet themselves to feel the heart repeating its one muffled note of astonishment. How many times, Desiderio, did you put down your tools to touch Christ's cheek here, where generations of living hands have rubbed the sensuous marble smooth? Did you feel what Mary felt as she touched Elizabeth? The stirring of a boy within the womb? And I'll go another childbirth poem. This book has at least 3 poems about birth in it, which I hesitated to write about, but I spent almost a decade of my life changing diapers and breastfeeding and giving birth to children. And these were some of the most interesting experiences, actually, that was happening in that decade. So this is about the birth of my daughter, my last child. She was born in spring, beautiful day. I was a pro, so we stopped to go for a walk before going to the hospital, knowing that pretty soon you're going to be strapped to monitors and unable to move. The poem is called Floodplain. All morning in mid-labor, not ready for the hospital, walking the floodplain, the earth still soft, waters receded, tulip poplars, knotted sycamores, clumps of grass ghosted with silt. The trees leaned downstream from many floods. I clung to them. My sisters, I thought, if I thought at all. Somehow the word did not seem wrong. The ground was washed bare, fibrous roots exposed, slack water, dusty with pollen. We walked and rested and walked again, bowing, then kneeling to each contraction as it came. Some bright bit of blue caught on the far bank. Without panic, I felt each crest carry me farther away from you, away from familiar ground. In the spaces between your hands, lightly, the air on my face. Maybe I was the trees, their massive trunks shifting as wind poured through high branches. Maybe I was the riverbed, or the light as it pulsed between moving leaves. From all about us, a wordless insistence. Deep in my interior, the forest, the water rising. How I became a mother. The children were a wilderness in which I wandered. They were a bend in the road, a map on which the place names had been altered. They were a dream I half remembered as I dreamed it, a language I'd never spoken, a taste I hadn't known I craved. They were a wound that would not close, and they were the salve for healing. The children were animals, and in the forest through which they led me, I was one too. With their small hands, they gentled me. The children were bridle, harness. They were the weight I carried, the stones I would never take from my pockets. They were my snug, my perfect fit. They were a charm, a chant, a spell that brings a change of season. They were an opening through which I plunged, the water that closed over me. They were a flood, a torrent. They turned me inside out, and when I no longer knew myself, they knew me. They made me flesh. They claimed me. I spent quite a few years writing poems about parenthood and my children, thinking that I was writing about my children and parenthood before I realized that I think what I was really writing about was time. Or if you have kids, you know how much they make you aware of the rush of time passing. You can feel like you yourself are staying the same, but you cannot deny that the children are growing and changing every day. This is a poem about time passing called Night Train. It's actually the VRE train in Fairfax that I describe, although I'm not sure, but I live near there. Night train. The interior landscape shifts, erodes. While the children sleep, we shore it up with flotsam, but the next day, another tide-bitten chunk of coastline crumbles. The trouble is, we're living all at once. We keep rearranging the rooms to try to find a way to fit. By day, we push aside the clutter, lay the baby on the floor. She drums with open palms as if to feel it's there. Something solid underneath. Mostly everything sways. A tree falls, and the house next door stands empty for years. The boy holds his sister to the window and shows her how to wave goodbye, and that's the morning, fingerprints in the dust of it. The day moves away in all directions. On leafless winter nights, we hear a train we've never seen on its way to some unknown destination. If we were on it, I'd lean my head against the window's rattling icy glass, look through our reflection as the moon rushes through branches. Look, there's a farmhouse, miles from the lights of any town. Someone turns on a lamp in a window. Someone stands there watching us go past. I remember when I started. Wait, just one more maybe. Close with the last poem in the book. It quotes Walt Whitman. Why not have Whitman in the room with us? Another poet amazed at existence. This is called Afternoon Sun at the End of Summer. The children wade naked and thigh deep in stone-colored water. They duck under and come up, flinging drops from their hair. Wind raises goose flesh on their arms. Touch is the miracle, wrote Whitman. Touch is the earth's language, and the children speak it. They revel in it. Wind and water and the hard, wave-patterned sand underfoot. Sound in its flutter against the inner ear, and light's weightless impingement on the 7 receptive layers of the retina.
Beautiful poetry, and leaving us with the thought of Whitman as well. So thank you, and thank you, Natalie, Amanda, and again, Emily, for sharing your work with us. It's been really special. Thank you. And let's see, I need to say a couple of things here. Oh, yes. Well, please join us in April for our April reading here at the Writer Center. Again, it's going to be a hybrid, a model. We'll have a live Zoom for those of you who can't be here at the Writer Center and here also. So also, I'd like to thank again Henry Crawford for just making this all possible, really, and for your technical support and all that entails. I have no idea. Also, thank you to Café Muse's founder, Karen, for your dedication. Without you, we wouldn't be here. So thank you. Thank you, Michael, for bringing the music. Thank you to my fellow co-hosts, Ellen, Cole, Madja Gama, Luther Jett, Henry Crawford, and Renee Garrity. Thank you also to the Writer Center for the space. But our biggest thanks is to our audience on Zoom and here at the Writer Center. Without you, of course, this wouldn't be happening at all. Also, please remember to stop by the author's table. The author's books are in the back. And again, I hope you were able to see the link on the Zoom. Let's see what else. Oh, yes. So April 7th, I forgot to say who will be here. It'll be Dorit Carroll, Hiram LaRue, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Lilo Way next month. So yes, well, good night and stay safe. And spring is budding. So yay. All right. Thanks a lot for being there.